It's an ancient ritual performed by Muslims unique to northern Sudan. They are the whirling dervishes. And if it's strange to our eyes, then it's just as alien to the people of southern Sudan. For here, they're Christians and animists. And such differences make Sudan a religious, tribal, and cultural cauldron. This is a story about Black Africa meeting Islamic North Africa. It's a meeting of cultures and religions that was destined for conflict. When Sudan gained its independence 37 years ago, the colonial powers decreed for their own vested interests that it should remain one country. And because of that, the Sudanese people were set on a course that led, inevitably, to the war and famine that blights this nation today. To reach the rebel-held south, you must start in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. And journalists in this part of the world need a guide. Someone like Jacob Akol, a Dinka tribesman of southern Sudan. The first rite of passage is a visit to the Nairobi headquarters of the rebel Sudan People's Liberation Army, the SPLA. The SPLA's military wing holds much of southern Sudan. Here they issue permissions to travel and propaganda.
This is Dr. Justin Yaj.
The center of power in Khartoum, it must be dismantled because we are not there.
Like most of the SPLA, Dr. Justin is a Christian, opposed to the Islamic regime of the north.
If I'm not acceptable because I'm a Christian and all these things, then something must be drastically wrong about the Sudan.
The SPLA gives us a guarantee of safe passage, but it's an uncertain guarantee at best. Last year, rebels killed 3 aid workers and a journalist in one incident alone. Lokichokio, northern Kenya, the front line of the International Food Aid Program. It's where the big planes are forced to stop. The annual flood of the Nile headwaters makes impossible swamps of the rough airstrips of southern Sudan. So from here, aid workers fly light aircraft, often for hours, across war zones, onto muddy strips in unsafe areas. And they do it daily. Jacob's own childhood was spent barely 50 kilometers away from this village of Thiet. Like these children, he too was a young refugee. He fled alone and on foot in the face of civil war.
It's almost like a continuation of my life. 30 years ago, I was displaced from southern Sudan by the same war, and it is sad to see that it is continuing for so long.
What strikes you first about southern Sudan is just how lush it is. It seems like some terrible mistake, people starving to death amidst such plenty. But this is rainy season. The harvest isn't in yet. And in the past, when harvest time comes, so does a new military offensive. This is the result. Year after year it happens. Hundreds of thousands of half-starved people leaving their crops to wither, fleeing the fighting, descending on feeding centres, and dying in their uncounted thousands. There are only a handful of feeding centres scattered through this, the largest country in Africa. Across hundreds of thousands of square kilometres, no one really knows what's happening. There are no body counts out here. Nature has bequeathed southern Sudan fertile lands, even plentiful oil reserves. Yet its children starve, its economy is decimated. They remain free from the clutches of the hated regime in Khartoum, but the cost is terrible. We set out along one of southern Sudan's countless waterlogged tracks.
How are we going to get through this?
I don't know. We may want to go around this way. Looks like it's a bit more sandy on this side.
Be back.
We're soon hopelessly bogged, and suddenly at the mercy of a band of guerrilla fighters. Our safety is supposedly guaranteed, but only by the main SPLA faction. We have no such agreement with renegade factions which now fight each other as bitterly as once they fought government troops. Luck is with us. We've stumbled upon a friendly unit.
I'm a commander of Tadawil, independent area.
The commander tells us he's retreating from a frontline position facing government troops because his hometown is threatened by a breakaway rebel force. After 10 years, the SPLA has started splitting into tribal-based factions. Colonel Garang, it seems to me, as an outsider, that you have something of a disaster on your hands at the moment. You have a ceasefire that's not holding. You still have thousands of your own people in the south starving or close to starving. And you also have an appalling split within your own ranks. Do you see it that way yourself?
Well, it's any war is a disaster, including our own, including the Second World War, including the First. All wars are disasters. What has happened in the SPLM is that a portion of the movement under Riek Machar and Lamakol has technically joined the enemy. It's a defection. It is not a split. Somewhere on our side, they have now gone on the Sudan government side. Some do defect from the Sudan government side to come to our side. That is the meaning of a civil war.
But it is a catastrophic split and a godsend for the government in Khartoum. Where once Soviet-made planes like this one delivered bombs, today it's delivering grain. Grain donated to the UN by the Khartoum government.
Initially, the administration outrightly refused to receive the plane from Khartoum for fear that it was poisoned.
So anything that comes out of Khartoum is immediately treated as being suspicious, presumably, is that right?
Without a doubt, immediately presumed as suspicious.
It's a gift from the enemy. For the Khartoum regime, with an international reputation of massive and shocking abuse of human rights, has launched a charm offensive. Sudan's Islamic capital, Khartoum. After years of self-imposed isolation, the regime is courting international opinion. It's become known as Khartoum's charm offensive. A charm offensive, though, is that a fair enough description of what you're working on?
That's an interesting term, I would say.
Is it an accurate one?
It's not. I don't think it's exactly a charm offensive. It's an attempt at trying to make the world perceive us as we are.
To perceive the regime for ourselves, we're allowed to see Sharia law in action. Islamic courts seen in the West as infamous.
This is the outlook of the West, and it is because of the punishments provided in Sharia. For example, in theft, the amputation of the arm, in adultery, the stoning and the lashing, which are viewed by the West as being cruel and unusual. Actually, for us, Sharia has been extremely tolerant.
But the Christians of the South don't trust the alien principles of Sharia and cannot believe government assurances that the Sharia will not be forced upon them. For although Islam preaches forgiveness and tolerance, the Khartoum regime stands accused of utter intolerance. Can you tell me, how do you feel as Minister for Justice in a country that has been slated by organizations like Amnesty International as having the worst human rights records in the world?
This does not fit with our character, with our religious beliefs, and with our tolerance. These accusations are the product of the opposition, which is in exile.
Well, mostly because they say they're afraid to come back.
Yes, and they want to come back as people in authority.
But Southerners say what they really want is simply to share the power.
The issue is that of justice, is that of freedom, is that of democracy, is that of development, opportunity for all, irrespective of race, irrespective of religion. And we are not unique in this. This is how nations are formed.
So you've not been defeated, but under the circumstances, can you hope for victory?
Well, it depends on what you mean by victory. Military victory, I don't think the Sudan government has any illusions that they can achieve military victory over us. We don't have any illusions that we are going to overrun Khartoum tomorrow.
Jacob Ackel has heard the arguments countless times before. Not once have they seemed any closer to resolving the plight of the victims caught in the middle.
Almost all of them are agreed that this war cannot be solved by continuing to fight. Yet they can't find that political solution. And the people who are suffering from that are the innocent people, the people we are looking at the moment.
Jacob has brought us to a place called Congo, in what's called South Sudan's Death Triangle. As many as 250,000 people have already perished in this region. There's been so much fighting, aid workers daren't stay overnight. The mainstream SPLA says an attack by renegade commander Colonel Riak is imminent. Commander, I've been informed that you are expecting an attack from the Riak forces soon. Is that true?
Yeah, I cannot deny it can be true because Riak has no objective. His objective is to destroy SPLA, is to fight us. He's not fighting the Sudanese government. So now his target is here.
The reports proved accurate. Within 12 hours of our leaving, Congo was under attack. These men were back in battle. The relief centres were closed. The staff evacuated.